This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Time to go racing. Sunday night GT action here for our Aussie talent, for viewers all over the world, as we welcome you to the Sebring International Raceway, located in Florida, down in Southeast United States of America. It hosts the 8th and penultimate round for Season 10 of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Series, with all coverage on Apex Racing TV, and we hope you're enjoying the coverage as well as we stream live on the iRacing Esports Network. Welcome to Sebring, a 6-kilometer circuit. That's 3.7 miles, around that mark in terms of nature. It's clockwise as they round 17 corners. A circuit that was once a former airfield, much like Silverstone. 90 minutes of racing action coming up. It's the final endurance race of our campaign before we head to the sprint format to close out the season in a week's time. 2 pit stops required by all the drivers. Now, elevation change around Sebring isn't that dramatic. It's very minimal, but there are a lot of bumps around this circuit, and that means braking and balance under braking can certainly provide critical driver skill. And that's what's needed to win the race as you head into those abrupt braking zones around here. It's a high-speed run down to turn 1 for the beginning of the race, so look out for that as we begin our 90-minute event here today. From myself, Jonathan Simon, welcome to the penultimate round of the series. Daniel Leet alongside me in the commentary booth. Scott Newton behind the scenes in production. And Daniel, here it is. Double points on offer for our final endurance race of the campaign. And there's no wonder Neil Pearson not only leads the overall standings, but leads the Endurance Cup standings too.
Yeah, good evening, Jonathan, and all the viewers tuning in. Great to have you on board. It's great to see Neil up towards the pointy end and currently leading the way in the championship. He's doing a fantastic job. Been very, very hard to follow. Class act to follow for all the competitors out there. Over the course of the 2 previous endurance rounds we've come to, and what better place to have a final round than Sebring International?
Yeah, most certainly. And like I said, he is leading the Endurance Cup standings, and more importantly for him, he's on his way towards a Simfinity $100 gift card, and that could go towards his sim rig.
Yeah, definitely. A very gracious offer coming on from the guys from Simfinity. So quite a few of those gift cards potentially up for the top runners within the championship. So it's sort of a little championship inside the championship, which is great to see. But for all the guys not familiar, Simfinity put some fantastic quality 80-20 rigs together in Australia. And for us Aussies here, not as fortunate to be in the States where you can get 80-20 in abundance. But Simfinity really coming on board to help out the community there.
Now, the series not only presented by Simfinity, they sponsor the Endurance Cup, but we also are represented by Abruzzi Raceware and RMS. That's the race management software. Visit them at rms55.com.au. And don't forget to visit Abruzzi Raceware at abruzzi.com.au. But for now, though, we're back to 90 minutes of action, Daniel, for the 3rd week in succession. Now, this wasn't originally supposed to be an endurance round, but we remember what happened a few weeks ago at Bathurst. Just due to some server issues, we had to, and great work by the stewards, by the way, and the series organizers to, at the last minute, understand that they had delayed the field quite a bit. They were going to turn that round into a sprint round. And then we weren't going to lose an extra Endurance Cup round. We just turned Sebring into an endurance race.
Yeah, great change there. Obviously, we would have had Bathurst being the first one, but I think equally to finish on Sebring is a pretty high note as well. So great work there from all the guys behind the scenes helping continue it on. But I'm really looking to see how these guys are going to fare around Sebring with the GT cars. We know what the circuit's going to be like out there, but I think for 90 minutes around here, the strategy is going to be ever important, as we've always seen, though.
Yeah, most certainly. Now we have 4 classes of cars, of course, or excuse me, 1 class of cars, but 4 different makes. We're using the GTEs for Season 10. We've got the Ferrari, the Ford, the Porsche, and the BMW. Now, it's fixed setups for each of the cars. How difficult is it creating a fixed setup that's balanced at each circuit for each car?
Look, it's pretty challenging. From what we've seen here, the championship runs a pretty consistent setup throughout the course of the championship, which is really good to see. They do make some alterations, obviously, for the longer tracks like Le Mans and going through Bathurst and that to help with the high speeds in a few areas. But overall, the balance has been fantastic. We did see a minor BOP tweak where there was a revision back to last season's setup for a couple of cars just to help bring them a little bit more in line. So the guys behind the scenes doing a lot of work to try and make sure that the field is as equal and close as possible.
Now, Sebring, 90 minutes of action. We have plenty of overtaking spots here today, so they don't have to rush into any of the overtakes. But when we look at this nature of this circuit, Daniel, turn number 1 is high speed, and that's going to be the first corner of the race, obviously. as we go green flag, but it can cause some bottlenecking as they head into the first sector. And this is what you're seeing on screen. This is Aaron Specchio. You're watching him heading into turn 7, the hairpin, but preceding this is that tight first sector, and that can cause a lot of chaos in the early laps.
Yeah, certainly really get the guys going. Obviously, the running through turn 1, we're going to see a lot of 2 and 3 wide actions. The guys try and funnel their way down through there. But looking at how they're going to go through the big braking zone down into turn number 7 at the hairpin, that's going to be the first big challenge really for these guys in sorting out their positioning. Later on in the lap, come through to my favourite section to finish it off down through Sebring, and watching those guys take about 3 or 4 different lines, especially in these cars. I think it's going to be really interesting to see the way that tends to run throughout the course of this race as well.
Yep, let's have a look at the grid for today's event. 90 minutes of racing action. So here's the grid up on screen, and it is Martin Crisp that will start on pole position. He's just ahead of Braden Nash. So they will start here on leading the rest of the field. Now, you look at the driver numbers. We'll talk about that later on. That's based on iRating and some other factors too. Neil Pearson, our championship leader, will start ahead of Nathan Huppets. Rolling start for today's field. Timothy Phoebe and Lee Vandenberg around the third row of the grid. Rounding out the top 10 is the ever-quick Aidan Luthwaite. So not the best qualifying performance for Luthwaite, so look out for him in the race. He's got immense pace. He's been very strong in Season 10, so we'll keep an eye on him. Down the rest of the order, Adrian Vlock is one of the 2 drivers that sandwiches Dave Clements in 11th. Sebastian Murray-Westberg, haven't seen him in the series that much. Inaugural performance, 14th. Matt Morris will round out the top 15. Now, rest of the order will be up on screen as we cycle through. And this is if I get this correct now, a 30-car field, if we ignore the race stewards, Daniel, at the end. 30-car field right now, and we've split this, of course. We get a lot of talent. I remember last season at Road America, maybe I'm getting mixed up with maybe this season or last season. I can't remember, Daniel, but we had over 100 cars register for one race.
Yeah, we've seen the numbers really sort of continue on throughout the course. I think it might have even been Sebring, potentially. Actually, no, was it Sebring, Silverstone, maybe even last season, sorry, where we had that huge volume of drivers. And it's great to see. I mean, it's a championship that's continued to bring a lot of new talent up throughout the course and of the running. And I think, even now on a bit of an off weeks, we're still getting a good volume of upwards of 30 drivers. So I would think that we're going to see this series continue to expand the way it has been.
So here we are now through the hairpin. Now, Daniel, talk us through the rest of this lap here before we begin the race. So this is where the field will have to form up in the early laps. But once you get towards Tower at turn 13, then towards Le Mans turn 16, do you think Sunset Bend, turn 17, the final corner, the corner that has a multitude of apexes, is that the best overtaking spot in the circuit?
Yeah, definitely. I think Sunset, along with turn 7, probably the 2 best corners here to get a really solid move done. Especially at the back end of the lap, Sunset probably going to be the key one. Obviously, you've got that really tricky fast entrance to make your way into pit lane, but watching the way the drivers will really attack this, I mean, you can come in quite narrow early on. It's almost like it's a 3-pronged attack as you go into this corner. So you come in a couple of different angles and get some really interesting lines to get yourself through and on to start the next lap.
Well, here we go. A few more corners to go here. I'm going to head on to the Allman Straight. I've seen a lot of incidents here, by the way, through this complex of corners. This is Bishop turn 14. We're going to head to Le Mans in a couple of corners' time. This circuit, like we said, a former airfield back in the 40s and the 50s before it turned into what you're seeing now, a circuit that's evolved into one of the most famous motor racing circuits in the world. I was jealous at one point in time, Daniel, when I visited Florida a few years ago. I didn't have the time to visit Sebring. That's a big regret I have.
Yeah, look, I would love to go to Sebring, especially with sort of the World Endurance Championship and IMSA being there. But I mean, it's a circuit that has so much heritage. It's used throughout the course of the season for testing. We only saw recently Scott McLaughlin out there testing an IndyCar. But it's one of those the circuits that's got so much character that I think everyone needs to visit, especially if you go overseas towards America.
As we said, welcome. Whether you're watching on the iRacing Esports Network, Apex Racing TV brings you the penultimate round for Season 10 of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Series. That pace car pulls in. Martin Crisp on pole position already floors it. And we go green for the final Endurance Cup race of the campaign. Crisp already with a rapid getaway. How about Nash being passed by championship leader Pearson here as they head into turn 1? And they're going to start to bottleneck through the first sector, but so far so clean.
Yeah, really good jump from everyone. I saw one of the...
And there you go. Sorry to interrupt, Daniel, just in the background. That's Pearson, I think, our championship leader spun around.
Yeah, it's very easy to do, especially on that run as it all files down. So we'll see if we can duck back for a replay on that, but that will drop him well down the order. I think looking like it may be Specchio involved in it as well, but near Pearson dropped all the way down to 25th position.
So Pearson taking a turn for the worst here in the championship. Remember, Endurance Cup action is double points, and will he win that Simfinity voucher? 3 drivers will win that. It's worth $100. And for a bit of Sunday night GT action, it's totally worth it here as the safety car comes out officially. And Daniel, I think that was a good decision by Race Control with Pearson. That was a tough one. Like you said, we have to look at the replay to find out what happened between himself and Braden Nash.
Yeah, we'll see if we can duck back and check out the replay there, but looks like that car still sitting stationary. Actually, I think also BJ Kennedy involved. He looks to still be sat down there as well. So a few cars pretty banged up. I was really surprised watching that start too. I think it might have been Lee Vernenberg in the Mark 1 car getting a pretty poor start as well, and he actually dropped quite a few spots off the opening exchange as well.
Yeah, not good for Vandenberg. Started the race in 6th, though. Up in a 5th. Now we're racing again here. This is... Oh, no, sorry, excuse me. This is the beginning of the race. I keep doing that. There is Pearson on the right. He is in that DPR racing car. And have a look at Nash in the RSR Esports car. He's on the right-hand side of the screen now, alongside Pearson. And Daniel, let's see what happens here. That's a tough angle to judge, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a tricky one there because, I mean, you could go quite a few different options there. So Race Control will really need to get in and have a look at that one and try and understand where it's going to go. But it's going to be a tough one, especially early.
Here we ride on board with Pearson. Let's have a listen to this. This will be interesting. It was tough to see from that angle too, Daniel. It's very, I mean, I think, I don't know, that this one's going to require some sim racing camera that you can't get in the real world, you know. It's such a tough incident to look at. And there you see him rejoining the racetrack and more damage to our championship leader. But hey, at the end of the day, it looks like Braden Nash's BMW looks clean, looks cool. And the RSR Esports driver will continue, but we'll bring you word from Race Control over that incident. Whether or not they deem that to be a penalty for either of the 2 drivers, or whether or not they'll deem it a racing incident.
Yeah, definitely. The minute we see that, we will find out. Safety car we're hearing as well will be in this lap as well, so we'll get a pretty quick restart here. Looks like we had a few drivers also come down the lane for a couple of stops as well, so they're starting to play themselves into contention already, taking that early stop. And we commented on that last week with Dave Clements getting up into the podium. Pretty much blew us all away that he'd done that and found himself up there, but he's one of the first runners to also come down the lane this time as well. So trying that similar strategy again to see where that'll catapult him up that field.
So remember, you cannot make your pit stop until your mandatory pit stop until your 3rd lap of the race. So this is something we got wrong last week due to a timing issue, but this week we can assure you that won't happen again. But we saw some drivers opt to make their pit stop, but they haven't completed the 3rd lap yet, Daniel. So I don't think anyone's going to be able to do it.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye on it. I mean, that being said, we're probably likely to see a couple more incidents throughout the course of the race, and we know Race Control will quickly get on top of those should they do come out. But it will be interesting to see whether that will play through.
Most certainly. So Where are we at? We're at Le Mans right now. So only a couple more corners to go, and that pace car will pull in. We're going to restart the race here. Already 5 minutes through. This will be lap 3 once they cross the line. So it's possible that any driver can actually... I'm not sure if they'll take... I don't think it will count. If they take to the pit lane, that's something we'll have to discuss with race control, because technically you enter the pit lane... If you enter it now, it's still your second lap. So they'll have to do it next time by. But we'll try and get that confirmed for you for the moment. But that's not in the minds of Martin Crisp. He's going to floor it as soon as he can. He wants to do it as soon as he straightens that BMW. And the XRC racing car. I feel like I heard that engine floor it. He's gone. No one's catching him. We go back to green flag racing here at Sebring. And it looks like everybody's going to be nose to tail into turn 1. One of the Fezzers in the back having a look. It looked like Aiden Luthwaite. How about Adrian Vlock in the Ford Zilla Ford? Making a move past Sebastian Murray Westberg in his first race. Cameron Vcock's fallen into some issues. He's falling down the field. He's had an incident down the back of the pack, but it still looks like Crisp leads the field away. Yeah,
just caught Vclock having a bit of a self-spin there on the run into 1, so the back end getting away from him. He's kept it off the wall by the looks and has rejoined, so he's got a lot of work now, down in 29th position, and he'll need to get back underway as quick as possible.
And battle for the lead is on here. Braden Nash trying to make it working around the outside. I think he's got it done. What a brilliant move. And look at Nathan Huppert's in the Fusion Sim racing car. Squeezed into a gap that Senna would have been proud of. And Martin Crisp is falling down the order like flies. Phoeben in the Mach 1 Esports car also having a peak.
Yeah, falling down just a touch there, but he's starting to get some teammates come along. Jordan Cullis a little further back, so a couple of the XCR guys, in amongst the Mach 1 Esports team, so they're working their way towards the front. But Chris getting past through that those key spots that we mentioned early on down in turn 7, so he will want to redress that as soon as possible. But that has really opened quite a gap now between Nash and Huppert's up ahead.
And Nash trying to pull away here from Nathan Huppert's. What a move by Huppert's, by the way. Very underrated. If you can take the lead in the next couple of laps, it's a move we'll remember for the rest of the race. Lap 3 about to begin, and the pit window opens for the next, I was going to say 90 minutes, but we're already 7 minutes through the race already. It's been that quick with the pace car periods. Very tight line from Braden Nash. Does that... I was going to say, is he going to make it to the exit? He just barely does here, and we begin another lap. That was the first full lap we were able to complete of the race so far. Nash extends and widens the line through 1. He's already built about a half a second advantage.
Yeah, I think we'll see him starting to try and ease out a little bit now. Both BMWs out front looking very, very comfortable. Crisp closing in a little bit. That gap starting to come back down. It was just short of a second before, so he's getting back underway now, which is good. But pretty much the whole top 6 starting to stretch a nice little bit of an advantage now.
So race control investigating Aaron Specchio on lap 1. No further action to that incident. They deemed there was a bit of technical issues with that. That's what's caused the incident there. But you look back at the lead here, no technical issues for Braden Nash. He's screaming away along with Nathan Huppert's. Very poor getaway by Martin Crisp. It's almost as if Martin Crisp didn't need that pace car period. He's fallen down to almost 2 seconds here from your top 2.
Yeah, I'm really surprised to see him struggling as much as he is early on. It's a little uncharacteristic for him there, and he's going to start finding himself under a little bit of attack. You can see Tim Phoeben closing right in behind, and a little further back we've got a few other good battles starting to close up as well. Pat Gallo now getting under a bit of attack from Richard Hunter from DPR Racing, so those guys fighting down 19th and 20th. A little bit further back as well, Jason Dulligan, John Holland, Neil Pearson, early race leader, starting to work his way back up, and he's got a lot of effort to do. Still sitting down that 22nd position though.
Yeah, Pearson is screaming away here. Passes John Halloran, who loses a couple of positions. Timothy Phoeben's also made his way past Martin Crisp, our pole sitter. It's been an abysmal few laps. Aidan Luthwaite in the Fez past Jesse Butler. Are there issues with Jesse Butler here as he's fallen down the order? And look at the field there. It started to pack up. So I feel like something's gone wrong for Jesse Butler heading into Sunset Bend possibly. We'll try and find out what's happened to him. He still hasn't crossed the start-finish line yet. So Dramatic couple of corners there for Jesse Butler. While I say that, Luthwaite up in the 6th now.
Yeah, we've just jumped back here to the replay to see what's going on. Butler actually just losing the nose on the run into Sunset Bend there, so I think he almost might have been clipped, just pulled up a little bit to try and avoid that, and unfortunately rotated that car around. We jumped to the onboard here. You can see him just up behind a couple of the BMWs and goes very late and just loses the balance of that car.
Yep, so not good news for Jesse Butler there. But Aidan Luthwaite having a great race. And how about Sebastian Murray-Westberg here? Up in the 9th, Daniel. Brilliant first race for him.
Yeah, doing a really good job. The car looking very straight and clean, which is what you want to see. And he's slowly working his way up towards the front. He's with the Redback Racing team, so a team that's very familiar with this car and this series, and really starting to come along well, which is great to see. He's actually, if anything, increasing a little bit of a gap over Adrian Volk, the first of our Ford runners at the moment as well, which is surprising to see also.
So race control getting back to us on a lap 4 incident. That was between the 726 car and the 305 car. So trying to identify who those two are, Daniel, if you can help me out here. Is there a typo? I don't see a 305 car anywhere. Might be a typo there, but
yeah, potential. There is a 350, which is John Halloran. We'll keep an eye on that. 725.
762 is Neil Pearson.
762 is Neil Pearson. You're correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Come on, Ryan Kolstad with the typos. That's the incident. We're assuming that's it because they were right next to each other on the racetrack, and if you do a little anagram with those numbers, you get those drivers. So racing incident for those two. Chris, by the way, he's fallen down to 6th now. He's in a battle between himself and Luthwaite. I'll tell you what, if Luthwaite drives like this for the next hour, I think he can win this. He might deserve it.
He's coming on really, really well, Aiden Luthwaite. I mean, he's been consistently quick throughout the course of this championship so far, and continuing the good run of fortune for the DPR car. The RSR Esports car. And Chris, I'm really surprised to see struggling as much. His teammates just going to go through on him down into 7 there. That's Jordan Collis getting by. And actually, Matt Morris almost trying to make that same move as well. So potential to lose the 2 spots as Morris just starts to flash the lights in the background.
Yeah, Morris getting a bit impatient there. As the drivers here getting a bit racy in the early laps. So we've had a lot of action here for AMF. Ray Stewart's probably hoped that it would be a little less dramatic, but they've had their work cut out for them here in the early 10 minutes of this event. Is it too early to make a pit stop, you could say here?
Look, it probably would be in my books to be a little too early. However, with the way the field's starting to spread out, you could probably find yourself dropping into a few good little holes as well. So it might be something worth considering an option. We'd have to wait and see. Brett Wilson up at the moment. He's got himself in a good little battle with Scotty Chambers there. We're also getting word about start issue there. Lap 1, the 326, the 981, the 386, 3 wide, which was a result of netcode. No further action there will be taken. So good to see that one being announced, and they'll just continue on racing. I think we saw that was Specchio and a couple of other guys involved in that as well. So those guys will, I think, be out of this one at this point in time, but they've always got next race to come back for as well.
And 2 XRC teammates battling. That's Crisp and Cullis.
Oh, we've got a spin into 1 too, sorry.
Oh, yeah, spin into 1 and almost a spin with Morris and Cullis. Look at the timing screen right now, Daniel. That's bizarre what you're seeing right there. Everybody shuffling around. There's a lot of contact here at turn number 1. That's one of the biggest incidents I've ever seen mid-race.
Yeah, that was a big one. Safety car has been deployed. We're just going to cut back to that. Looked like Adrian Volk involved in that. He got a spin from one of the Pulse Racing cars on the run into 1 there. And then we saw about 5 or 6 cars getting in board one of the Redback cars up against the tyre barrier as well. So that's some really big carnage through all those cars.
Yeah, goodness me. If you were following live timing for Apex Racing TV, that was bizarre when you had a look there. It was distracting me, but we did have one car up on, luckily not on its roof, but on 2 wheels, much like you see at the Melbourne show. And yeah, not what you want to see here on a Sunday night for AMF action. But Brett Wilson was one of the drivers who was involved. A lot of other drivers involved too. Who was up on their roof? I was struggling to see who that was. Was the JP Simshed car? I don't think so.
No, it was one of the Redback racing cars. I think it might have actually been David Miller involved in that. So he's well down the order at this point. And I think, yeah, that was definitely that car. There were a few others. I think it might have been Chris Pallett involved for the Pulse Racing team. Obviously, Adrian Volk. Brett Wilson definitely involved in that. And I think it was also there was a Porsche involved in there as well. I'm just trying to find which one that was, but that we saw just eking its way through. And with that too, we've got first 5 in the race coming in the lane for their respective stops as well.
So they're all going for the pit stops. Top 8 goes in. Neil Pearson has just been given a drive-through penalty. He's going to come in as well this lap. Now, this is interesting because Pearson was on a recovery drive. He was up in the 12th. And because of that, it was given to him for his lap 1 rejoin. We caught the end of that on the replay. So that's the reason why Pearson in the DPR racing car has been given a penalty. This is a race to forget for him. How about Sebastian Murray Westberg, who's going to lead this race? First car out and away. Do I see Martin Crisp out and away first? I'm going to have a look at that. I don't know if that was Crisp. Yeah, Crisp was out and away. A very quick pit stop for him. And he should technically lead this field. He'll be the first one. He'll be the lead car that's made a pit stop.
Yeah, really good jump from Martin Crisp, a really quick pit stop. I'm just trying to get a look at the actual time. So 37 seconds stationary. So that looks to be purely fuel only. Everyone else that's in the lane, upwards of 53 to a minute stationary. So those guys looking at potentially doing tyres now to help themselves out.
So that's the bonus of a short pit stop for Martin Crisp, our pole sitter, trying to throw something else in the works for him. He'll have fresh rubber for the end of the race for sure. And, you know, if you're wondering why there are a lot of BMWs out there in the field, you're only allowed 1 car selection, and a lot of the fields opted for the BMW all year. You can't switch from round to round from different vehicles. So for Crisp, for Cullis, Huppets, all these drivers, they feel the BMW is going to be the quickest overall with the calendar presented to us. So Sebastian Murray Westberg, nevertheless, will lead the field. And he's if I'm not mistaken, the only driver who hasn't entered pit lane so far in the entire field, who's currently running.
Yeah, I just had to restart, so my time's a little bit funny at the moment, but yeah, definitely I haven't seen him come down the lane at all. Safety car 2, we're getting word, will be coming through this time by, but yeah, great for Westberg to get a run out the front. He's got Pat Gallo from the sister team Mark 1 right behind him, so that will be a bit of comfort for him there. He should be able to get a nice clean jump, but yeah, it's great to have a little bit someone different up the front and trying a different strategy to get themselves a good opportunity at the back end of this race.
Yep, definitely. And I don't know if it will work out for him. He's going to have to gamble on another pace car period. But good race nevertheless there from the 333 car. So what do you do now during all these pace car periods? Is this good for a driver? Does this turn this 90-minute race and make it a little bit easier, make it almost like a sprint race?
Look, it will make it a little like a sprint race. Obviously, we've spoken about this a few times where the guys will try to break these up into different segments and get the most out of it. And I think it'll help reset the mind just a little bit. We can see one of those XRC cars getting through on a wave round, so he's trying to get himself to the back. I think that might be Aaron Specchio actually working his way back around. But it's a good opportunity to get that breather in, because we know with the quality of the field, you don't get much time to take a 5-minute breather here. So while they got the opportunity down the long straight, this will be great for them.
And how many races have you led in your time on iRacing? Because this is an interesting experience for Sebastian Murray Westberg.
I think it was 1, and I promptly proceeded to put it in the wall. So I'm not the best one for that.
Oh, there's a lot of pressure anyway on Mr. Murray Westberg here. He's going to floor it. He's going to go green here. Still plenty of racing action to go. Over an hour. Leads Pat Gallo away in that Mach 1 Esports car. So already the field's forming up here through the first couple of corners. I look at Rob Crisdale. And Crisdale alongside Jason Dullahan here in the Pulse Racing Team car. Have a look at the Redback racing car of Stephen Bartholomew too. Just a few corners away from where his teammate David Miller was up on 2 wheels. He proceeds to scream away in the 6th position, but no position changes in your top 10 so far at the beginning here, although everybody looks racy.
Yeah, really good restart from all involved. A few opportunistic moves there. Rob Crisdale trying to get a move done early on while everyone was a little bit slow, but down the inside we've got some guys going for another move, and we got a spin actually a little further back down here, down into turn 7. I think we saw 2 cars getting involved. Nearly everyone got avoided that, but yeah, Happerson.
Oh, he's just going to stay. I mean, everybody's going to make their way around him, right? He just can't panic in this situation, Nathan Huppert. I feel like he tried to get his car into a safer position there, but you just don't move. That's the trick. But Nathan Huppert will be interesting to see what happened to him, Daniel.
Yeah, we'll see if we can duck back to a replay once we get the field back underway here. It looks like everyone else has got going again, which is good. But yeah, for poor old Mr. Huppert said that's not where he wants to be. And I didn't see him trying to move that car around. I think it just, with the speed that you come into those corners, once you're committed, it's very hard to make an adjustment change in these for a...
Yeah, definitely. So racing continues, as we said. We're going to focus on this before we look back at a replay. And Murray Westberg leads the field away at Pat Gallo here as we end yet another lap. It'll be lap 9 that they begin this time round. Up 20 minutes in this event so far. Gallo for the Mach 1 Esports team in 2nd. Then Hunter 3rd. Delahan 4th. Crisdale rounds out the top 5. Then it's Bartholomew, Kennedy, Halloran, Crisp, Cullis to round out the top 10. The 2 teammates for the XRC racing team. Braden Nash, we're hearing, has just made up a couple of positions here, as Cullis and Crisp may have been caught up, the 2 teammates, in a nice little scrap there heading into turn 1. Maybe a bit of contact we're hearing too.
Yeah, it looked like Crisp just lost the front end to touch and ultimately ran into his teammate. We also see him BJ Kennedy off the circuit as well, unable to rejoin, not getting any issues. But yeah, unfortunate for the 2 XRC cars to come together like that. And that actually did release, say, Braden Nash, Tim Phoeben also getting through as well. But has this Braden Nash now with a 30-second drive-through penalty as well, so he will need to come down the lane to serve that.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. So, like we said, got to keep the races clean here. Still a long ways to go, though. Who do you think's in best position to win this race? Is it Pat Gallo now after the pit stop phases?
Yeah, it's a little hard to say. I think Gallo's moving himself into a really good spot already, and a few of the guys a little further down the order also playing themselves in quite nicely here. But I wouldn't be discounting Gallo. Crisdale also in a really good spot as well. But it's pretty well open for anyone. Actually, I'm be inclined to maybe throw it out to the viewers who are their fan favourites to maybe get this one in the bag tonight. Obviously, we've had 3 different winners throughout the course of the endurance season. Well, 2 different winners. Will we see a 3rd different one tonight?
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one for sure. And if you're keeping in touch, whether you're watching on YouTube, anywhere else, on iRacing, Esports Networks, associated platforms, give us your vote for race winner today. Will it be Pat Gallo? Will Pearson climb his way up through the field after his penalty? And of course, a couple of pit stops already in this race. Will Crisp make amends for his poor start after starting from pole? Give us your thoughts. Send them in. And don't forget, of course, as well, to check out series partners of the AMF GT series. That's Abruzzi Racewear. Also have Symphony that sponsor the Endurance Cup. And of course, RMS. You can visit them at rms55.com.au. And if you want to check out more on Apex Racing TV broadcasts, check out apexracingtv.com for more information. And you can get your league broadcasted through the sim racing world. Now, in the past couple of 30 seconds, while going through that, I've seen a few position changes down your field. Crisp and Cullis are back joined together again. Do we keep eyes back on Luthwaite here, Daniel? Because look at this through the hairpin. I almost saw 3 wide at one point. Bit of bump drafting behind Luthwaite. Matt Morris is an ever-speedy racer. And have a look at Crisp as well, trying to make a move on Halloran heading into turn 10.
Oh yeah, Crisp doing a really good job moving left and right, trying to make a position. And then you got some really good contenders, as you say, with...
What a move. Sorry, Daniel. What a move by Morris there around the outside of Luthwaite too. Brilliant stuff from the VMMR driver. Sorry to interrupt you. That was just brilliant. I think Luthwaite had a nose up the inside of Cullis, and Morris just had none of it. Wants to get a move on this race. And again, Matt Morris is just so quick, isn't he? He needs to sort out qualifying because I tell you what, he'd win a lot more races. He's just got that car dialed in for the race and up the inside here, possibly at Le Mans. Had a look anyway, and that's going to compromise his exit because have a look at this. Aidan Luthwaite behind in the other Fez is going to try and make his move on Morris heading into Sunset Bend. You know what? You can force him offline and maybe make the move into one.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough one to see. You see Luthwaite taking a very wide entry, going to try and tighten the nose of that Ferrari up. Just suffering a little bit. Everyone tries to avoid that big bump on the inside of Sunset Bend there, so a little out of sorts there. Does drop back, but I think for Morris and Luthwaite there, the real advantage came with that battle. We saw a little bit ahead of these guys, John Haller and Martin Crisp, where Haller was going very, very defensive, trying to hold off both of those XRC cars. It really presented a nice opportunity there for Morris to take that position. But right behind them, we've still got Paul Wood, BJ Kennedy recovering after his little off-track excursion before as well. So we're going to see a nice train of about 6 to 7 cars really starting to form up as this fight continues on.
Now, we talked about Braden Nash versus Nathan Huppets and the incident they had at this corner at turn 7. Now, Nash has just been given a penalty for that, and he's just servicing that car now, or he's at least entering the pit lane. But racing action continues here. Matt Morris making a move as the replay's on. Matt Morris is going to make a move in the background. We'll keep eyes on both of these, Daniel. There's so much going on.
Yeah, we're just getting back to that battle with Nathan Huppets having his little spin. So that was some contact there, which as we ride on the onboard, looked like it might have been one of the RSR cars just down the inside. So we'll keep an eye on that. And it was, and I'll see if we can find the name associated. I think that might have been Braden Nash. So that could be the penalty that we saw earlier just being issued, that 30-second penalty. So we jump to another shot from Nash, just getting the door closed on him there from Happett. So not a lot of room for either of those two drivers.
Yeah, so whilst that took place, there was a lot of argy-bargy going on in the background between Cullis, Morris, and Luthwaite. That scrap's still continuing. I hope it continues for the next few laps because it was a thrilling one for sure. Paul Wood is screaming past us. Aidan Luthwaite, I think, received a slowdown here through Le Mans. It's possible, isn't it?
Well, it's a very easy one to sort of get a little bit of a slowdown. We'll see if we can cut back and just double check that. I'm also seeing too that we had Sebastian Murray Westberg also dropped down a few spots as well, currently sitting in that 3rd position.
Through turn 1, Cullis and Wood continue the battle. Luthwaite's back on the attack here. Now the lead's changed, of course. Back Gallo into P1, Richard Hunter into P2, Sebastian Murray Westberg now dropped to 3rd. Still yet to make his first pit stop of the day. Purple sector for Crisp. He looks quick as well. At this point in time, half an hour through the race, ladies and gentlemen, whatever predictions you've made, throw them out the window and reconsider them in 30 minutes' time because we have no clue who's going to end out on the top step of the podium and claim that double points for the Enduro Cup.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see. Everyone we kind of think might be up with a shot. There's a little bit of a battle that goes underway and we kind of miss it. Matt Morris still, again, fighting, trying that outside move, which worked for him just a lap or two ago, and actually gets it done now on Crisp. So grabs a little bit of curb, gets the Ferrari up, but he's going to have Martin Crisp trying down the inside and just shuts the door on him. So good move from Matt Morris, now up onto the top 10.
Good stuff there from Morris, the VMMR car. We told you he's a poised racer. He's a classy one too. Hopefully speak to him after the race here if he has a good one in the next 60 minutes. Luthwaite all over the rear end of Paul Wood now. This is where he received the slowdown a lap ago. Now has Paul Wood ran too wide there? I don't think he'll receive a slowdown from that, but he'll certainly put him under attack here from the Ferrari of Luthwaite. Here's the RSR Esports driver looking to make a move up the inside.
Yeah, and really easy to do. Just releases that brake, fires the car in there, and gets another one checked off. Paul would have really been suffering on that exit down the back straight there after running wide, so that'll ultimately hurt him. But now Jordan Collis, the next car in the line for Luthwaite to get past. So see how quickly this will take him, but I don't think it'll be long.
To turn. Oh, look at this. Screaming up the inside is Luthwaite. Oh, he bullied his way past. Jordan Cullis there. Pearson behind as well, also making his way past Dave Clements. Dave Clements also trying to make his way through the field too. A lock down the order along with Alex Court. So a couple of other drivers who have fallen down through the couple of pace car periods will be trying to make amends for that. 3 Fords down in 20th, 21st, and 22nd here. Now, I know they're not teammates off the racetrack, but you're driving a Ford, you found something in common. Maybe they can all make their way through the field together.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we're all seeing it from the BMW brigade working their way through and currently occupying 3rd down through 7th. So, I mean, if you can utilise the same cars to push your way back up, why not? Sebastian Murray Westberg, just got him up on screen now. So just fallen back just a touch behind our guys. So you can see the 2 leaders just in front, a second up the road there, and they're still fighting extremely hard right now in the form of Pat Geller and Richard Hunter. So they're not getting away from this battle, but the top 3 really opening up quite a good gap now over Rob Crisdale, currently in 4th. You can see him right at the back of shot, with about 6 or 7 cars right behind him as well.
Yep, so that's Crisdale as well, who we haven't spoken about much this race. It's up in the 4th, but Pearson now down the back end of the order I've been watching. 19th. It's going to be a candy from a baby move. I know BJ Kennedy, he does exactly that. Around the outside. I take that back actually, because I didn't think BJ Kennedy would be so strong over the bumps here through the final corner. Pearson barely scrapes into the final corner and remains on the tarmac. They'll scream across the start-finish line. It's questionable to find out who's going to lead coming out of turn 1 between these two. Scraping the wall almost is Pearson, but he's finally made his way past into 18th on this recovery drive.
Yeah, good solid move then. Set that basically up from the run through Sunset there, so really good opportunity. And we saw BJ Kennedy, as he got past it, just dropping a little bit of a wheel off, which will ultimately open him up to the Ford there of Dave Clements. You can just see in the back of shot, first about a couple of cars going through, but they're working very hard. A little further up though, Tim Phoeben getting involved in it as well. We're just going to cut back to a little bit of a replay. This was Phoeben on Steve Bartholomew down into 7.
Yeah, brilliant stuff by Phoeben. That was a move for P5. So Phoeben up into the top 5. Started the race in 5th. So Phoeben's found a balance there. Bartholomew, believe it or not, started from 23rd, Daniel.
He's doing a fantastic job, and take nothing away from him. The racecraft's been well and truly on display tonight, and you can see as a result, currently sitting in that 6th spot, so he's doing everything he needs to do to win.
Now through the final few corners before the Ullman Straight they go. Bartholomew's got a mammoth run here onto the Ullman Straight. Phoeben's got a mammoth run on Rob Crisdale. See how the draft worked? Phoeben, well, I tell you what, the draft's working splendidly right now for Timothy Phoeben, because Crisdale's he's had to go on the defensive, and through Sunset Bend they go. The corner with a million lines. Now through the main straight. Again, another questionable battle. Who's going to end out on top? You've got to defend the inside here. Phoeben's going to try and go for the switchback, but I think he just pulled out of the gas too early, and almost a bit of contact there mid-apex. And he had to back out of it. And look at this behind as well. Vandenberg past Bartholomew.
Yeah, great driving there from both the Mark 1 cars. I really thought we might have seen Phoeben get the move done with the crisscross. I think that's what he was trying for down in through 1. But one door closes, another door opens there for Vandenberg, likewise getting through on Bartholomew. So battles going up and down the field. You see Crisdale very defensive again, down into 7. It's going to give him a slightly slower exit off this corner, but I think it's enough that, as you see there, he's able to close out Tim Phoeben. So holding off these guys as they're working their way around at lap 16.
And you talked about Dave Clements earlier. So both he and Neil Pearson are making their way back up through the field. Not making their way downtown, although they could be. And Clements here, he's got to be careful because Carter's looking racy here as they head towards the middle sector. It's turn 10. They'll head towards Collier, turn 11, and then this is Tower, turn 13, coming up between the two. Clements still on the defensive here. He just made his way past Darrell Carter into turn 7. That's the hairpin. And now he's finally sealed that move. He's under pressure by quite a bit. But interesting stat for you in this race so far, Daniel. in your top 10, only 4 drivers started in the top 10. Everybody else was outside.
That's pretty interesting. I mean, I kind of expected we'd have a pretty fair shake-up. I didn't expect to see so many of them still sitting there, but yeah, it's a great run from all those guys. And for the guys that have worked their way up from outside the top 10, well, they're doing a fantastic run at the moment.
So, again, waiting for those second pit stops anytime soon. Clemens had a great race last week, didn't he? Now, Watkins Glen, this week, I'm not sure if he'll be able to replicate that. He's going to have to put something, he's going to have to do something out of the ordinary to make his way back up through the order. How about Adrian Vlok here versus Alex Court heading into turn 1? That's Alex Court up the inside. Jordan Cullis, though, I tell you what, issues for Cullis. He spun in sector 1.
Yeah, just going to need to be careful with that rejoin. I thought he might have let go there. We'll catch an eye on what happened. Got a good run down through turn 1. I think it might have been just a handful of contact there with another BMW that's ultimately turned him around, and it is.
Yeah, the door was opened by Cullis, and Halloran was invited to have a peek, but I think he just peeked a bit too much, made a bit of contact there. So that's up to the stewards to decide who's at fault, but it looks like Halloran, if any of the two, was definitely at fault for that one. And unfortunately for Halloran, he's had a good race in that Redback Racing BMW. May have to serve a black flag penalty. We'll see how the stewards deem that. They've been pretty strict today for sure. And that's not a bad thing. I think they've been they haven't been as flexible as they have in other weeks, which is what you want to see. You know, you don't want racing standards to get worse and worse over the weeks, especially going into the final round next week where the championship can be decided.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something that the series has been really good on. It's been good, firm, consistent decisions and reviews throughout the course of the season, which has been excellent. I mean, like I say, the last thing you want is decisions chopping and changing week to week, and the drivers not really having a clear understanding of what's going on. As we watch a good battle here, Matthew Whiting and Brett Wilson, and Michael Whiting getting that move done, promotes himself now up into 15th spot. One move we missed a little earlier as well, so we still focus on this with Brett Wilson coming through. Matt Morris has got himself up past Steve Bartholomew as well, and now finds himself in the 7th spot in the Ferraris for VMR Racing as well. So these guys still getting some good battles going on throughout the course of this field.
Oh no, Crisdale's off. Where is Rob Crisdale? He's not even, he's in the spectators. What's going on right now? This is bizarre. Crisdale's fallen off into oblivion, and he's been reset back into the pit lane. I'll tell you what, that deserves a replay for sure. He was in the trees almost. If there was any trees there, he was way off the racetrack.
Yeah, here we are with the replay now. Doesn't look... Oh, actually, you got a little bit of a helping hand there from one of the Mark 1 cars, just nerfed in the rear corner, and that was actually Tim Phoeben, I believe, behind the wheel there. So just catches a little bit of contact on that left rear of the car, and ultimately turned Crisdale off wide. And unfortunate, he's dropped well down now.
Well, it wasn't that hard to rejoin. He just, I don't think, realized that if you drove into the spectators, you'd be reset. Like it's not Richard Burns Rally, because in Richard Burns Rally, you're out of the stage basically, just like you would in the real world. So you basically your stage is done for rally, and your round is done. Jason Dullahan also falling down the order now. What's going on this race, guys? This reminds me of Bathurst now. Dullahan's off into the final sector. And a pit stop recently, by the way, for Martin Crisp. Sebastian Murray Westberg enters the lane for his first pit stop of the day, but Crisp has made his second already. We'll keep an eye on that, Daniel, because that could be critical come the end of the race.
Yeah, definitely. It's not a bad time probably to be coming in, 40 minutes almost on the way. You could just see him closing into his box there while these guys go through. Phoeben going very defensive there. Matt Morris trying to get a move, and these guys now scrapping over the 3rd spot. But it's probably not a bad time to be coming in, get those stops out underway. We saw some guys last week go very, very long through the course of the run, which worked quite well, and saw some great results come of it. But it's going to be interesting to see when the next round of guys decide they want to blink and come down the lane. But right now we've got Westberg in for his first stop. But this fight going on for 3rd position between Morris and Phoeben, ever fighting. It's actually going to invite Bartholomew and Vandenberg back into it as well.
Oh, Morris is just such a good racer, isn't he? Looking forward to this one over the next couple of laps. We'll focus on it. Now, we spoke about Lee Vandenberg and pit stops, right? Lee Vandenberg is going to have to make a pit stop, but for all the wrong reasons. He's been black flagged for his incident with Rob Crisdale, so he's already quick decision there by race control. It was an obvious one. Steamed at fault for that one. And Lee Vandenberg, who has driven better. This is probably the best season I've ever seen Lee Vandenberg perform in a sense. He's driven ever well this year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's a driver that's come on leaps and bounds. Obviously, when we had the change from the two different classes, the GTE and the GT3, he was very, very dominant in that car and has likewise made the transition very, very nicely up to the one category of GTE driving. So it'll be a little bit disappointing for him to get that contact, but he will be able to work his way back through the field. The guys up towards the pointy end, though, Pat Gallo, Richard Hunter, those guys are continuing on their great scrap and have been for quite a while since we saw the change of position with Murray Westberg dropping down. So these guys fighting on very nicely. The gap sitting pretty consistent at the moment of around half a second. You can still see the different lines that these drivers are taking through one.
Yeah, I like it. And through Sunset Bend too. This is what Sebring offers as part of the challenge here. There was a race once I did here, Daniel, where just before turn 3, we turn actually right and then rejoin at Bishop at turn 14. It's one of the circuits, one of the layouts available on iRacing. That was about 4 years ago, the last time I saw a layout like that. So I'd like to see a race in AMF like that. How about we don't split the race? Just get 70 cars to run that short layout. You would have, I think, about a quarter of a second between each car.
And passing all the way throughout the field. It would be pretty intense. Something that would be great to do as an off-season race. Maybe not on the official calendar, however, but I think the racing would be absolutely fantastic nonetheless.
So Matt Morris is the driver we said we're going to focus on, and focus on we will, because he, in that VMMR Ferrari, has been screaming through this field after starting from 15th. He's in 4th, and he's made one pit stop. Remember, only a few drivers have made their second pit stop already. So for Morris, this is a brilliant race so far. He is, though, 12 seconds behind leader Pat Gallo. Do you think he can close that down, number 1, Daniel? Let's exclude safety cars from that answer, number 2.
Look, I'm going to say yes. There's definitely room that he can close that down. Looking at the laps the last few times by, he's actually been quicker by about half a second than our leaders. I'm saying that Richard Hunter's just dropped in the lane for his stop as well. But the pace that Morris has got at the moment, very, very consistent. I don't see why he can't potentially bring that car further up towards the pointy end.
Good Richard Hunter in the pit lane now at the DPI racing car. Make his final pit stop of the day. 2 mandatory stops required in our endurance format here for 90 minutes of racing action. Normally, the race would almost be concluded at this point, but we're only halfway through as we enter minute 43. As Hunter, like we said, is the only driver to service his car this lap so far. Now Morris still yet to find a way past Phoeben, even though provisionally they're on the podium. Their pace last lap, half a second quicker, the both of them, than leader Pat Gallo.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see that while they are scrapping as hard as they are, they haven't lost touch with the consistency and the pace that they need to go up there. I'm actually surprised they're also bringing along with them Steve Bartholomew. You can just see right behind there for Redback Racing. So these three certainly on a really good move up the field, and I think we're going to continue to see that. The other one that we're going to need to start keeping an eye on as well as he works his way back up, Aidan Litherwaite, sitting there in the 5th position right now. He's not too far behind. The pace, likewise, very, very good for him. Actually, last time by, he was a touch quicker than both those 2 cars in front of Phoeben and Morris. So he's really playing himself into a good spot right now.
Yep, doing a splendid job this race. 45 minutes of the way through, like we said. So let's have a look at the order here halfway through the event. It's Pat Gallo that leads. It's a 1-2 for Mac 1 Esports as Timothy Phoeben currently holds the 2nd position in that 988 car. in the 966 car is Matt Morris. He heads the third position and the first Ferrari out there in the field. And he's trying to make his way past Timothy Fieben here. The battle is getting closer and closer between Morris and Fieben as Morris remains all over the spoiler of the BMW of Timothy Fieben here as he has a peek into turn one. Morris is going for it, and he's had to rejoin there. Both of them only... that reminds me of Ayrton Senna in a sense, Daniel, when I think it was at the Caesars Palace Grand Prix back in the 80s in Las Vegas, and Senna crashed, and I think he complained that the barrier had moved because he said there's no way that he made driver error, and I think they found after the race that the barrier had actually moved a couple of inches from a previous accident, which caused Senna's accident.
I do remember having read that. Actually, I don't think it was quite as much of a thing with the inches, but it was more than enough that with the consistency that he ran, that, ultimately plucked the front wheel off the car and ended his race. So, phenomenal the way these drivers get so used and familiar with these cars. They know exactly where they need to be placing them, and we're seeing that evident with these guys right now.
Could you imagine Senna racing with netcode in sim racing?
Look, I think it would be very, very entertaining. I don't think it would be a great thing. It would be very entertaining. We'd have to get him a live stream similar to what Lando Norris and the boys are doing over there as well, just to get the highlights reel for them.
Yeah, that would be awesome to see. Unfortunately, Ayrton Senna, it's been going to be 26 years this year since the passing of one of the greats of all time in Formula One. You know, when I raced in FSR in the World Championship back in 2014 and 15, I almost was reluctant to battle with international drivers. And I know some other Aussies who race in the Grand Prix Series Championship before that was ripped apart by sim racing. But when that was a series, they used to avoid literally battling with international drivers, because if you did, you'd almost end your race with contact. You just have to sort of give them at least 2 car lengths to width of space, or you had to pass them in pit stops.
Yeah, I mean, that was a really big issue early on in the piece. The netcode between countries was huge. I mean, we still see a lot of that now, but with the moving technology, that's getting a lot smaller, and the use of the local servers is certainly helping that. We're seeing a solid battle here. Dave Clements is now sitting in that 9th spot. He's got Paul Wood in front of him, so those guys down on the 8th position. And great to see the forwards now, actually 2 of them up inside the top 10, right behind Daryl Carter as well, sitting in that 10th spot. But yeah, I really enjoy the battle with the internationals. It's always a good measuring stick to see how you're battling and where you face up against that. Obviously, you can do it against your local rivals, and having a yardstick like the internationals to measure yourself up against is always good.
So I was going to talk you through the order, of course. Bartholomew's in 4th at the moment, as you can see on screen. Luthwaite in your top 5 finally. Then it's Jesse Butler, John Halloran, Paul Wood, Dave Clements, who we just focused on. He's right behind Wood here. And he's made a mockery of turn 10 through the middle sector. And Daryl Carter rounds out the top 10. Now, all of these drivers, it's showing Clements is in the pit lane twice. I'll double check that, but I'm pretty sure he's made his 2nd pit stop. And if that's the case, Clements is in prime position right now to win this race. But like we said, we'll double check that.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye on that. We know that it was in very, very early on when we had that first lap safety car, which I think, if I read the rules right, that should be okay now, but I will double check that as well. But he's played himself into a good position. He ran the same strategy last week out at Watkins Glen, and you know what? It netted him a 3rd position. So there's no reason, with the way this is playing out, he may not find himself up on that podium position again.
Yeah, so Clements did indeed pit before his 3rd lap, so we'll have to check if that's legal, but we don't think so. Climbs onto the grass there through the final corners on 2 wheels, and lucky for him, he's going to be able to continue here on yet another lap without scraping the wall there. But his teammate Pat Gallo still leads this race, but only by a matter of inches. Matt Morris, by the way, has made his way past Timothy Fieben in the background. John Halloran, with issues as we say that, has had a spin into what looks like Sector 1.
Yeah, that was actually also helped by Paul Wood. So those two having a really strong battle, and then a bit of door-to-door rubbing, which I think we will see some action from the race control afterwards. But that's now put Dave Clements in a move, and he's going to go down the inside. So that will promote Dave Clements now up into 7th. Daryl Carter trying to now get a move done as well on Paul Wood also. So the two Fords working their way up towards the front.
Good stuff from these guys. But Morris, like we said, love to see a replay of that incident. Of that pass. Morris back ahead of Timothy Phoeben. Morris is having a brilliant race, and it's almost becoming deja vu, isn't it, week to week for Matt Morris. He's one of the best talents out there in the field. Champion as well in past seasons, Matt Morris. Looking to do so again this season, although we'll see what happens to Neil Pearson. He's currently in 20th, but I don't think Neil Pearson will walk away from this race. Still got a lot of time remaining, still 40 minutes, but I don't think he's going to walk away with the championship lead or the Endurance Cup.
No, but like I say, there is still 40 minutes left on the clock. Pretty much anything can happen from this point, and we've seen a lot happen already over the last few races. And in the background, a shot, we've got, I think that might be one of the Redback cars going off into the grass on the exit before we hit the main back straight there. So we'll have to see if we can go back and check who was involved in that. But there's plenty of opportunity for these guys to work their way through. Paul Wood now in the lane for a stop, a potential penalty from that contact with Halloran as well.
Yep, that's confirmed by race control, so it's a drive-through penalty for Paul Wood. Yet another one this race. And this is our top split. It's rare to see this in top split, but Paul Wood actually serviced the car as well. So for Paul Wood, he... so how does that work now? Is he able to... Is it a stop-go penalty he's been given? Or is he going to make the pit stop first and then serve the penalty?
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. I think he'll actually, it hasn't been handed out yet, so I think race control's still going to be reviewing that because the stop for Wood there, 14.8 seconds. So if something does come out, and again, we'll keep an eye on that to see whether it will or not, he will definitely need to drop back in the lane, which is certainly going to drop him further down the order. Currently, he finds himself in the 21st position after that stop, so a lot of work for him still to do in the remaining 40 minutes of this race.
So it's not too late to make a pit stop, obviously, Daniel. Now, you're very experienced in GTE cars. When are these cars in their prime when you come out of the box?
Look, with the way the tyres sort of come up to temp, you're probably going to need a good 2 to 3 laps to start really getting the most out of it. We know there are some guys or some quality drivers within this field who can really get themselves around that and make the most of what they've got available and get these cars up to temp quicker. But I think you'll probably find 2 to 3 laps after a stop, they'll be about where they want to be again. Obviously, with the endurance, we know the guys have got to take a set of tyres through one of the 2 mandatory stops. So for the guys that take them later on, it'd be something interesting we'll have to keep an eye on.
Next week, we head to Road Atlanta, by the way, one of my favourite circuits. You enjoy it there?
Look, it's interesting. I don't think I dislike it. It's maybe not one of my favourite circuits to go to. It's certainly very technically challenging, even though it looks very simplistic when you put it on paper. But it's a circuit that provides a lot of great racing.
I remember I got back into sim racing this year, in 2019, after I think I hadn't raced in years. And the first time I tested the F3, which was the first car I jumped into, it seemed pretty popular at the time, and they were at Road Atlanta, and I was obsessed. I think the first week, and one night, I had a week off, like hardly any work to do, a lot of time on my hands, limited social life because of sim racing, and I think I was online from like 8 p.m. to like 3 a.m. just sim racing. Obviously with breaks in between, I didn't just pee my pants like you pee in the cockpit in real life and stuff, but yeah, it's such an enjoyable layout. I think I even released a video because I was on a server with Max Verstappen at the time. He set the world record. And if you go to the Simon Racing Report YouTube page, there's a video on that somewhere. But visit that after the race, of course. Don't leave us. But man, that circuit, I fell in love with Road Atlanta. I miss that feeling, when you fall in love with a circuit for the first time.
Yeah, look, I certainly enjoy it. I find, and I'm sure a lot of drivers out there will agree, the run that you've got to take up into turn 1, it's a blind crest before you make that famous run down through the S's there. Always hard to pick a braking marker to get those cars right. probably the one part I really do love though is the run just before you get onto the back straight. You've got the two right-handers to work your way through. You fire a lot of speed in on the first right-hander, break the car down really tight. Just got to try and miss that curb to get the exit. But they're probably my two favourite points on that circuit.
Yeah, so still racing going on, by the way, whilst we talk about Road Atlanta in 7 days' time. We're still at Sebring. Only a few hours in terms of flight if we were here in the real world, but we're not. Lucky virtually, it's just a few clicks away for our Aussie talent. Dave Clements versus Daryl Carter continues as they head into the first couple of corners here. Sector 1, Daniel, it's you can't really see the difference is when you drive an open wheeler around Sebring, when the World Championship was here a few years ago for Grand Prix, you can't really use the curbs around here. But in GT racing, I find it just fascinating how you can just throw this car onto a curb that would have damaged an F1 car.
Yeah, it's interesting the way the cars obviously take to those bumps and get their way around. So yeah, obviously everything's got a lot better over time, and it's like a fine wine. It seems to mature with age the longer it goes on. But yeah, gone are the days of past where you really struggle to try and want to put those cars anywhere near.
Have a look at this. Daryl Carter put some pressure on Dave Clements here in the Mach 1 Esports car. Don't forget Clements with the podium last week. A brilliant result for him. Looking to do the same here a week later at Sebring. But so far, it's not looking good for Dave Clements. He made a move past Carter a few laps ago, many minutes ago. Looks like Carter's found some pace yet again in that Ford. Trying to see, where's the Ford Zilla car of Vlock? He's all the way down in 22nd, so he's nowhere near this bunch. But there are only 3 Fords out there in the field, and these are 2 of them at the same piece of tarmac here at Sebring. Have a look at this, though. Jesse Butler versus Stephen Bartholomew. The 2 Redback Racing teammates going for the switchback through the final corner. Porsche versus BMW. Butler's going to win this one out.
Yeah, the Porsche getting a really nice exit off the Sunset Bend there, able to maintain that line. If anything, actually surprised we didn't see his teammate trying to come through and maybe close that gap up there, but really good move there from Butler to retain.
Now, if we think about the points here with half an hour remaining, it looks like Luthwaite could win the Enduro Cup and the $100 Simfinity voucher. So we'll keep you posted on that for sure. Sebastian Murray Westberg, though, made his first pit stop. Remember, he was the last person to make his first pit stop, Daniel, and now one of the first to make his second pit stop.
Yeah, so really close together stops for him. He came in, I think it was 38 minutes on the clock there, so really
Change
short
tyres too.
second
Sorry to
stint.
interrupt.
No, that's all right.
Change tyres too.
So very short stop then. Well, actually tyres, as you say, and he'll get in and out pretty quickly and back underway. So this should be setting himself up for a good run there. And obviously, we get another safety car. He's right in contention at that point.
Yeah, so the first time around, it was a very long stop for Murray Westberg. And like I said, changed tyres. So this time around, hopefully going to be a bit quicker for him. I see a purple sector somewhere, by the way. That's Lee Vandenberg down in 19th. So Vandenberg is a driver who's, like we said, had a good season. This isn't a race to remember. He had a penalty to serve earlier on for an incident. Now he's going to continue away through the mid-pack. Pearson, our championship leader. Have a guess, Daniel. Where is he? Almost top 15 now. His second recovery drive in one day.
And he's doing a good effort. Obviously, not the race that he's wanted so far tonight, that's for sure. But hasn't thrown in the towel, and that's what we like to see from these guys. Continued on, fighting against the unfortunates there, and continuing on to put in a good effort. And at the end of this, while he may not get the top step for the Endurance Cup, there's still a team and a driver championship still to play out for at the end of this, which the guys are going to want to get done.
The gap between Morris and Gallo right now, just keeping an eye on that, Daniel, whilst we're talking about different subjects here, but Morris has closed the gap now to 5.8 to Gallo. He was 7/10 faster than Gallo last lap round. This is Morris in second. We talked about him winning this race. I think he's right up there. I think he's got the pace. I think Morris can do this.
I think he can too. He's played himself into really good contention right now. Obviously, these last 30 minutes, we're just about to click over the hour mark, going to be critical again for him to bring this car home. But right now, everything is going well. The thing I'm a bit worried about, and I really hope for Matt's sake it doesn't happen, we have seen a couple of unforced errors through the back end of a couple of races, which I'd love to see not come back and haunt him again. I'm sure we would love to be having a chat with us at the back end of this race, coming home in a really top spot. But as you say, played himself into a fantastic effort. He's got quite a big gap over Pat Gallo in front, but the lap times at the moment are suggesting that he will close this gap down. Last time by 0.6 of a second quicker, so he's certainly got the pace in the car to help him out.
So he's coming towards the final corner here. I'd love to get an onboard lap with Matt Morris, Daniel, and we'll talk the field through this. So Morris right now, under 5 seconds is the gap between him and Gallo. This is the first sector, Daniel. You want to throw the car into the corner, and it just sticks, doesn't it, with the amount of grip you have?
Yeah, it's really interesting how late you can break in here. You just drop down, you aim for that little cone, you can just see in the top of the framework there as the guys work their way down this little short chute into 3. 2's a little kink that you don't really do much for. 3, 4, or 5 really tight. Getting the cars up, trying to avoid as much of that curb as possible because it really will unsettle these cars. Then you have this nice little run down here through Big Bend, turn 6. And you can see on the little inside shot there, no one around him at the moment. So he's taken the optimal racing line, breaks it down, back to first gear for turn 7. That long hairpin. Struggle a little bit for traction in a few other cars in that corner there getting out. But obviously these GT cars with the traction control really helping out. The long run now up to Cunningham, turn 10. Again, braking around that 3 cone to pull the nose in. Struggles a touch, but he's doing quite well. Now the run up towards Tower, and this car looking really, really well settled. The gap continuing to increase over Tim Feeman at the moment. Was half a second earlier on, now to 0.8, so flowing the car nicely through here. And he will set up for this good little run down through turn 15 to 16, down into the Ullman Straight, where the car's just picking up all the right angles, gets over nicely through those curbs. And he's now going to get this chance to have a short little breather before he runs down into 17.
And that turn 17 is Sunset Bend. You'll see him run into here, and it will be a multitude of lines that you can take. It's almost very difficult to spot your turning point into here. Morris throws that Ferrari, one of the 4 lone Ferraris out here in the field. He'll end the lap here, and you can see just an immense amount of lines you can take through there, and you can still be quick no matter what. Now the gap now, that was, and well done, Daniel Leet. Brilliant onboard lap provided by my co-commentator. And what a lap it was to show. A 1 minute 55.9. He was the quickest driver out there in the entire field. And he was almost 2 seconds quicker than Pat Gallo in P1. The gap now down to 3 seconds.
Yeah, he drove that car fantastically well. You could just see Pat going through top of frame there. And the Morris car really coming into play on this long run. Gallo's going to have himself a little bit of traffic in the form of Paul Wood ahead, which I don't see being too much of a drama there. Paul, pretty seasoned racer, and will step out of the way. But Matt Morris coming on incredibly strong right now.
Oh, man, I'll tell you what. I should have put money on Matt Morris. I regret this now, Daniel. Sports bet or something like that. Should have put it on the AMF series. Imagine if they had that, by the way. You wouldn't know who would be favorite for odds. This series sometimes just it's very interesting week to week in terms of who wins. You just never know if the luck goes your way. It reminds me a little bit of poker, where when you watch Texas Hold'em, yeah, the best poker players always seem to win and reach the final and stuff, but you still need that little bit of luck on your side when it comes to poker. The leaders don't always finish on the final table, if that makes sense. You're best in the world, but they do make it there most of the time. That's what the AMF series reminds me of.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good analogy for it, because obviously these guys want to keep those hands close to the chest for the passes and working out where they can go around. So it's as much as it's going fast, it's also a thinking man's game, and we're seeing a lot of that right now. Nathan Happett's having a really solid recovery drive. Remember, he had that issue down in turn 7 where he was spun early on as race leader Gallo drops in the lane. Nathan Happett's now down in 12th position, And he's got Scott Chambers right in front of him for the Pulse Racing team.
And a pit stop as well. Gallo is going to hand the lead to Matt Morris. So we just spoke about the Pulse Racing team car there in a battle. But Gallo here is going to service that BMW at the right time. Morris, we're not going to see him make a pass into the pit lane. And Gallo is joined by Alex Court in the DPI racing car and John Halloran. So those three making their final pit stops for the day. And trying to see if anyone else is through the field. No, Huppert's continues. Chambers continues as well. This will need to be a quick pit stop for Gallo here.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. It's looking rather long, so I think this will be his tyre stop as well, because we're already at 40 seconds stationary so far. Alex Court going through, getting back underway, so that's actually a change of position there. Court now in the 12th position. Gallo still stationary. This is a really long stop for him, right?
Yeah, very, very long one for Gallo. He's going to fall behind the likes of Pearson, Alex Court, Richard Hunter, Michael Whiting. I think he's out of contention here for the lead. So all eyes will be on Morris. Now, the lead driver with 2 pit stops, again, we'll confirm this, is Daryl Carter, who's made his way past Dave Clements. Now, let's have a look. When did Carter make that pit stop? Again, I don't think Carter made that pit stop legally. That was before his 3rd lap. Same with Clements. So I think... No, Huppert's is the same. I'm doing this ad hoc right now. This is not good. Is Pearson the one? Yeah, I think Pearson is technically the lead driver who can legally finish this race for the moment, but we'll double check that. He's in 11th. Did I confuse you? Sorry. I'm sorry if I confused you.
No, that's all good. I'm just actually rechecking the rule just to make sure where we're going here with these, because if they're in contention, and we've said it a few times, if all this is as the book goes, and I'm going to put on the money, I think that we should be right here as we see Carter down the lane again. We're in for a really solid finish with both of these cars going through. Bartholomew down the lane for his stop, Neil Pearson back into the 10. So a long, solid recovery drive for him, still starting to pay dividends. And he just got a move on Cameron Leacock in the Redback Racing car, who we saw having some issues earlier on there. So Pearson coming along quite nicely now.
So 45 seconds between Morris and Pearson. If Morris makes a pit stop, we expect Pearson to lead this race. But will Morris's pace climb him up back into the lead? I don't know, because Pearson is almost matching Morris in terms of lap time at the moment.
Yeah, lap time between both guys actually very, very close right now, so could go either way, really.
I'm interested to see there between Morrison and Neil Pearson post pit stop phase. But like we said, we are correct. You've got to make that pit stop at the start of your 3rd lap. So a lot of these drivers were made 2. It wasn't legal for all of them. Some of them was to service damage, maybe get out of traffic. One of those was legal during the 2nd pace car period we had a few minutes in this race. But hey, we're in the hour mark. We're about 20, what is it? Just about 22 minutes away from the finish here. It's a late night, isn't it, here on a Sunday now when you think about it, these endurance races. I thought this would go a lot quicker than I thought, but they are long ones here. If you're watching from around the world, locally for a lot of these guys who are on the East Coast in Australia, it's around about 10 p.m., 9 p.m. For Scott Newton, he's probably our producer. He's pulling his hair out going like, hey, I'm in WA, I'm important. It's 8 p.m. 7 p.m., whatever it is. Sorry, 7 p.m. See, he had to correct me. I knew he was going to correct me.
Yeah, it makes for a very long night for all these guys. But obviously, the start of the working week again tomorrow. Back out there, and why not the last ditch of fun before you got to go? So, guys, doing a great effort here. We've still got a solid battle further down the field. Scott Chambers, Dave Miller. These two scrapping now over the 23rd, 24th position. Actually, Miller there with a little bit of a run wide, and that will allow BJ Kennedy to get through and take that move. So, a little bit of an unforced error there, and good driving from Kennedy to come back. He's recovering after an earlier spin and doing a good job. Martin Crisp seen him drop well down the order. He was leading the race earlier on, and pole position sitter for this one. He's now down in the 16th spot. John Halloran right behind him as these two work their way down in towards turn 1 for another lap.
And here's Halloran up the inside into 1. Don't touch the barriers, Senna, as he... Goodness me, Martin Crisp there. Hey, a bit of contact between the two. That didn't hurt anybody. Love a bit of extracurricular activity in racing. Crisp, though, will be passed officially now by John Halloran for the 16th position. Pat Gallo is right behind these two as well. He's just in shot. Gallo could also capitalize if anything goes wrong between the two. Daryl Carter, by the way, is falling down the order quite rapidly here after his pit stop. Is that Ford struggling to get tyre temp up?
Yeah, I think it might be. The stop for Carter, pretty sure it was only 18 seconds stationary, so he will be on the older tyres, but he could just be finding the balance of that car a little bit out as he gets a move put on him as well by one of the Fisher Motorsports car. Matt Morris down the lane now for his stop. So he comes in early. Tim Phoeben still going around as well, but a little surprised to see Carter starting to struggle as much so far at this point in the race, but keep an eye on that. Lee Vandenberg also likewise just behind in shot, coming back after his earlier indiscretions and currently now down in that 14th position as well.
Yeah, he'll be trying to make his way up through the field if he can get the tyres up to temperature like we said, if that is indeed the issue he's facing. Pat Gallo right now with a mammoth run on the Almond Straight. He's actually going to fall behind the two here as Chris gets an even better run on John Halloran. Trying to repass him on the exact same lap here. Just about 2 minutes ago, they were swapping positions. Around the outside goes Crisp. Oh, man. Almost contact again. And I think that might have hampered Crisp's exit here as he goes for the outside here for the switchback. Gallo remains patient behind as well, hoping something goes wrong between these two. But it looks like Halloran's going to defend robustly here as they head into 1. Crisp searching for every single nook and cranny he can find out there on the racetrack. Any millimeter of space to make his way back past Halloran, but it's not going to be enough here as they head into the first sector yet another time.
Yeah, and just watching Pat Gallo trying to stick his nose into that fight as well. Lucky not to get the front of that car taken off there from Crisp, as he was still focusing on at the moment. And he's coming in really quite nicely after that long stop. Those fresh tyres going to really help. But 3 wide down into turn 7, and Crisp gets that move finally completed on John Halloran.
Brilliant stuff by Martin Crisp back into 16th. And he earned that whilst losing it. But this is not helping Pat Gallo's event, who was leading this race for quite some time through the middle stages here. Now, late in the race, where is Matt Morris? Down into 6th after his second pit stop. He's behind Nathan Huppets. Now, Nathan Huppets, again, I just need to double check Nathan Huppets' pit stops. Can you help me out here, Daniel? I think Huppets has made, he's made 1 pit stop, I think, Huppets. So does that mean Morris is leading this race if he's ended up ahead of Pearson?
Yeah, I don't have the exact number on it. We'll have to keep an eye there. But if that is how it's played out, he's certainly going to be right on the books to come home further on. Huppets, we know, has had quite a few issues throughout the course of this race. Obviously, that spin down in turn 7 early on really knocked him about, but coming strong here through the field. The gap between these two cars, not much at all at the moment. Only just under 2 seconds now as they work their way through. 15 minutes still left on this clock.
Yeah, plenty of time remaining here in the AMF GT Series, round number 8 to kick off 2020 here. Can you believe the first season's almost over? And NASCAR only started the other week. Formula One hasn't even begun yet. It's only pre-season testing, and we're about to conclude season 10, but the first season for 2020 of the AMF GT Series. What do you reckon's in store for next season, Daniel? 2 classes of cars, perhaps, yet again? Do we bring the TCR in?
Look, I actually really enjoy the format that the race organisers have sort of come on with. Obviously, we saw its transition from a mixed category with GTE and GT3 to the one-make GT3 class, and I think it's been a great step forward. I really don't know if bringing another category like TCR would really make the racing much better than it is. Obviously, everyone likes a little bit of multi-carb, but I think we've got a really solid formula as it is.
Yeah, I like that too. Well said. Don't think TCR. I mean, it's if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? The series is as enjoyable as we find it. Love to see more star-studded names, of course, too. Out there in the field, we've had some good ones in the past, haven't we, Daniel? We've had Shane Van Gisbergen racing. We normally see Justin Ruggier here week to week, but haven't seen him out there recently. Would he be racing this weekend, if I'm not mistaken, both those guys?
Well, yeah, for the Aussies there, they know we've just had the Adelaide 500, formerly Clipsal 500. So it's going to be a hard one to change the name there, back to the Adelaide 500. But that would have been those guys tied up. But I mean, it was only a few weeks ago we saw Van Gisbergen at the Barcelona race here. He got into a fantastic scrap. I think it might have even been Martin Crisp that he was battling with. And those guys were door-to-door throughout the last 10 to 15 minutes of that race. So anyone who wants to go and check it out, please duck back to the Barcelona race. But it was some really solid, clean racing between professional race drivers versus, our guys that love having a dabble on the weekend in the sim rail.
Yeah, definitely. I loved how SVG today, you see him get the lift after the race. He was changing the gears and everything. I don't know. It reminded me of old school, Mansell.
Well, I'm probably going to become the most hated person here, but I didn't watch a single race over the weekend, so I've got a lot of catch up to do over the course of the week.
Too busy getting your ears pierced, I heard as well. Is that true?
I can neither confirm nor deny, but would not recommend it.
Midlife crisis for you is Timothy Phoeben entering the pit lane for his final stop of the day. That's going to hand the lead over to Aidan Luthwaite, and possibly as well, Daniel, that could mean, off the top of my head, this isn't an accurate calculation, but Aidan Luthwaite could win the Enduro Cup.
He's been really, really consistent. I think we're still going to have to see that car possibly come down the lane one more time. We'll double check and triple check and confirm all that. But he's in a really solid position, and it's something that RSR Esports have done throughout the course of this season. We didn't know much about him at the start. Actually, start of last season at Imola, we knew very, very little about these guys. But over the course of season 9 and again season 10, they found themselves towards the pointy end, and really putting on a fantastic effort, taking it to the likes of our usuals out there in Mark 1 Fusion Sim Racing and Redback Racing. So really, really good to have them stepping in. And for Luthwaite right now, got himself a 6.5 second lead over Jesse Butler, which is not to be sneezed at. And he's finding himself coming home when it really counts, where he needs to be.
Yeah, it all depends on Nathan Huppert's pit stop, but I think at the end of the day, I think it's going to be Huppert's. He was 10 points down on Pearson coming into this round. Double points for the Enduro Cup races as well for the overall championship. But it looks like it's going to be a close fought battle between Luthwaite, Huppert's, and Pearson. And at the end of the day, we're giving out $300 vouchers, aren't we, anyway? So even if you don't win the Enduro Cup, you'll get one of those three.
Yeah, but everyone wants that little piece on the mantle that says endurance champion, or champion of any form. Yes, it's nice, and again, we must thank the guys at Simfinity for their support over the course of this endurance championship. Again, providing those gift cards. But as a driver, you still want that top spot, and I know these guys are not going to be happy without it. So they'll continue on. Matt Morris now after his stop, and likewise Tim Phoeben. Those positions are now reversed. We've got Phoeben once again in front of Morris. Lithuate and Butler also, you can see on the timing tree, just dropped in the lane as well. So potential that those guys will fall down behind this battle as well.
Yep, here is Luthwaite in the RSR Esports car. This will need to be a quick stop. We're expecting Huppert's to come in too. Clements coming in here with 12 minutes to go. Dave Clements, you have a quick Ford Mac 1 Esports driver. Butler enters his box. That's going to be difficult for Butler, who's limited in terms of visibility. Luthwaite out and away quickly. He's not going to snatch the lead, I don't think, from Huppert's. Huppert's screams his way past into turn 1, but we are expecting one more pit stop. Luthwaite dramatically rejoins behind Phoeben and Morris.
Yeah, really good stop there, and very short field. The car was only stationary for just under 10 seconds, so very, very good effort there, and not really dropping too far off the pace. You can see these three really close together. The gap up to Nathan Huppert's right now, 3 seconds, but 3 seconds in around this lap is absolutely nothing. We saw, especially a few laps ago, when Matt Morris, with that spectacular onboard that we got at him, took 2 seconds from our race leader, so he's certainly these guys will really be capable of pulling down that gap.
So eyes back on the VMMR Ferrari of Morris, who is fighting for a race win here with 2 rounds to go in the championship. He's not really in contention for the championship lead for the Enduro Cup. But I'll tell you what, this will be a win to remember for Morris. This is as best as we've seen him drive in quite some time. And they head through turn 13. Pressure on Phoeben, who makes a mockery of the line through there. Just managed to get a good exit as they head through the final sector. And then on towards Le Mans coming up. The long radius right-hander on towards the Almond Straight. Morris is nailing his lines through the final sector here. Will he have a run here on the Almond Straight for the lead?
Yeah, I think he'll set up for a nice one here. He's going to get a good draft, although the BMW getting a slightly better run off. You can see just extending that gap as we keep an eye. The draft for both these cars really close, and they're topping out pretty similarly around that 260k mark as they tip into 7.
Here they go. Morris, no, he's not going to get it done. He's too far back. We'll write this off this lap round with under 10 minutes remaining. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are expecting Huppets to come into the pit lane, like we said, in the Fusion Sim Racing car. Whether or not he enters this lap round, we'll wait and see. But he is about 3-4 seconds up the road from these two. These are your two fighting for the lead. That's Timothy Phoeben in the Mach 1 Esports car and Matt Morris in the 966 car. Aidan Luthwaite behind is going for not only the overall championship, he'll close down the lead on Pearson if he remains ahead here towards the end of the race. But those extra points here, double points, don't forget, Daniel, so every pass here is worth it even more.
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, you're going to want to get those moves done. Ultimately, there's the long game that these guys are playing, not only the Endurance Cup, but also the long game for the season championship. So a lot to consider, and they're not going to want to throw away a silly opportunity to grab a fistful of points here. So keep an eye on that. But I'm interested to see the line that Matt will take again through 17. I noticed just as we cut away from the onboard there, as they exited 17, that Tim Phoeben's car just struggling a little bit mid-corner. Actually, he washed a little bit wide, so if Morris can close up again this time by, which is getting himself in a nice position for now as they work their way around the later half of this race, or lap, sorry. I think he could be in with a good shot to have a run at turn 1 here.
I'm nervous now. Remember we said an hour ago we had no clue who was going to win this race? I hope you're enjoying all the action at home, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a thrilling race at Sebring here for the Enduro Cup. We're almost about to conclude, though. And whether or not Morris can make this pass is the biggest question all day so far for round 8 of the AMF GT Series. Morris, as close as you can get through Sunset Bend here. Both cars getting a bit skatey through the bumps. That's going to affect their exit. And tell you what, that's going to nullify the effect of each of their moments, because they both had a moment and they both lost time. And that means at the end of the day, it's not going to affect the gaps between the two. Whilst I said that, Morris got awfully close to the wall there up the inside. You can tell he's pushing. Yeah,
Morris still got a little bit better tyre life underneath him at the moment, as evident through turn 1 and almost on the run into the mid-corner of 17 there. That car had a lot of good speed, so he's coming on strong now. Phoeben, though, struggling a little bit for grip. We're going to see whether he starts going a bit more defensive now with Morris starting to really close in. But I'm surprised Luthwaite hasn't been able to close down this gap. It's still sitting at about 4/10 as Morris again tries the over and under on the run through 7 and nearly gets this one done as well.
Oh, will he make the move here into 10? It's possible. We saw Morris here do it on Luthwaite earlier on in the event. He goes for the outside, but it's not going to be enough from Matt Morris. And Luthwaite ready to pounce here. So this has just become ever more interesting. Will this be deja vu yet the other way around for Morris? It won't be. They'll form up through the final sector. Man, Daniel, I know it's a hot day in Melbourne, right? But I'm starting to sweat.
Oh, mate, I can tell you, I would not want to be behind the wheel of these cars trying to poke their way around. I feel now for Morris is the meat and the sandwich between the guys in front and behind. So he's going to have to be keeping an eye, one forward, one in the rear view, keeping an eye here on which way both of these cars go. But surprisingly, they've been able to open a little bit of a gap as they run down the Almond Straight again, like 41. So nearing our finish here. But Morris just seems to have that little bit of an advantage on the mid-corner exit, still able to close up, and I'm surprised where he's looking at opportunities to get through as Nathan Happett's now in the lane for his final stop.
Yep, so we called that correctly. Huppert will hand the lead over officially to Timothy Feber now, although that's not surprising. Huppert, this should be a quick stop. He's going to rejoin behind Neil Pearson. So, again, it'll be interesting to see, or maybe not. Anyway, we'll keep you posted on that. But whether or not, yeah, so it looks like Pearson right now could still win the Enduro Cup based on the points he'll receive today. But anyway, all eyes are on Feber versus Morris. 5-minute warning. Remember that in the footy, Daniel? We're about to have it here at Sebring as the sun begins to shine at the circuit here at 8:20 a.m. in sim time.
Yeah, perfect for these guys. Just to come home, 5 minutes still on the clock here, so anything can still go. Morris still trying to get that nose down the inside. Martin Crisp also in the lane for another stop as well, so that's going to hurt him. Happett's, after his final stop, drops back into 7th spot, so not too bad from him. He's got Dave Clements right in front, and that's not going to be an easy one for him to get through as well. Happett's will defend that. Dave Clements will defend that with absolute vigour to try and hold on to that 6th spot.
Yeah, nice vigour shown by Clements here. So, close battle through the field. Definitely the lead is your closest. I'm looking at Clements versus Huppert. That's one battle that we'll keep track of. And Alex Court versus Richard Hunter, the two teammates, despite in different cars here. Excuse me, sorry, that's Hunter versus Carter. So the not-so teammates. Ferrari versus Ford. Recent movie that's just come out, of course. A very well-rated film. Is Ford versus Ferrari. Definitely check that out. But one Ferrari could be passed by another here because Morris has made a mockery of the exit through Le Mans. He's going to defend all the way to the wall here on the Ullman Straight. And Luthwaite's going to have to earn this. He says if you're going to make a move, you're going to have to go around the outside.
Yeah, Morris doing a really good move there. Just keeps that car enough to the inside. He'll set up here for a run. He's going to be really defensive. Just keep an eye on this. He doesn't want to move a lot. Stays to that inside run. You can see him just squeeze down a little bit on the run into one. So he's trying as many moves as he can. But Luthwaite around the outside into one. You don't see that come off too.
Now, I think there was some bump drafting going on there between Morris and Luthwaite. So that was very interesting to see. I'm not sure if it was intentional or not, and if it wasn't, they're lucky that they didn't end up in the wall there, the two Fezzers. They'll try and hunt down that BMW, though, that's leading a Feeben. It'll be good to see a car. You know, I love the BMW, but we've just seen so many out there. It'll be good to see a BMW not win this race for once, but Feeben will be trying to prove me wrong. But this could be another week where we see another Mach 1 Esports win this Mach 1 Esports car win this race. Because with 3 minutes remaining, we're going to fit in, another couple of laps here, Daniel. And Feeben has got that 0.6 of a second gap almost comfortable at the moment.
Yeah, well, while we see this battle over second position with Luthwaite and Morris, that's going to ease the pressure there for Feeben. He's already starting to extend that gap now, 0.6 of a second. And while it's not a lot, it's a little bit of breathing room that he can play with here. Though he drops a tyre off on the run through turn 13, that's not going to help everyone's cause there. But while these two continue their fighting, he'll be loving it. And I think, as you say, we're going to get about 2 more laps in while we count down. Luthwaite nearly in through Le Mans there. So these guys are going to start throwing these cars every which way.
Feeben started from 5th, Morris from 15th, Luthwaite from 10th. So anybody with OCD and you love your multiples of 5, there you go. They're in 1, 2, 3, respectively. Right there, though, that was not the right place to make the move for Aidan Luthwaite. Look at the gap now, 0.8 of a second between Feeben and Morris. I tell you what, though, Daniel, he's going to cross the line here, Feeben. This is going to be awfully close. I think we have 2 laps remaining. I don't think this is the final lap. This is the penultimate lap right now.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really tight. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see it go through. We're still 2 minutes on the clock, or just a bit over as he crossed the line there. So if you get 2 more laps, Morris and Luthwaite are going to absolutely be reveling in that. They'll be trying for 2 cracking laps now to get it done. And looking at the lap time buys last time, Feeben 0.2 quicker than both drivers behind him, so continuing to extend that gap. So they're going to need to get on with it right now if they want a chance of taking the spot.
So relative time, 0.8 of a second now, the gap. Let's see if they close it through the hairpin. Let's have a listen. Visually, it looks closer. I look at the time, and I'm correct. 7/10 of a second there. So 1/10 through the hairpin. If you do that through every corner, you'll eventually be all over the rear spoiler there of Phoeben.
Yeah, both guys, while they're having a little bit of a break, Lithuate just struggling a little bit on the exit there. That'll drop him down a couple of tenths. Again, Morris, or actually, sorry, Lithuate's still that little bit quicker than Morris as they go around, but the guys trying to close that gap down, still sitting at the 7/10, but second and third, absolutely nothing between either of these two right.
And this is where Lithuate attempted a move of the ages, and I'm glad he didn't at the end of the day, because it could have ended both their races here. But the two Ferraris look racy. Lithuate closer to Morris than Morris is to the lead. This will be the white flag. We are in the US. Might as well wave it here whilst we're in the United States of America. And it will wave, and Phoeben will begin the final lap of the race here. Have a look at that in terms of time. 3 seconds to go. 1 second to go. He crosses the line. This is the final lap of the race. It was that close. Phoeben couldn't slow down to take the checker, and he's going to have to keep it together for one more lap.
Yeah, really great stuff to see there. I don't think Phoeben would have been in any spot, as you say, to left that one open. But what it does do is another lap for Morris now. 17 corners for him to try and hold these guys off. So anything could go on.
And oh no, Nathan Huppert has entered the pit lane here on the final lap. I think he's expected this race to go one lap shorter, and that's going to officially hand the Enduro Cup title to Neil Pearson. So whilst we watch the end of this race, Phoeben's going to scream away from Morris. Morris under attack from Lithuate. Whilst Aiden Lithuate's going to close the championship lead down on Neil Pearson, it'll be Neil Pearson to win the Enduro Cup, and he will be awarded one of $300 gift cards, and that can go towards a new Simfinity rig. And you can visit and check out more about Simfinity at simfinity.com.au here. But here's the racing action with a couple of corners to go. On two wheels on the grass there is Lithuate. Is he going to go for it through Le Mans here, possibly in the next few corners?
I think he's setting up for a really solid move. He's just moving that car a touch offline. Morris had a really struggled run down through turn 13 there, which ultimately slowed him up a bit. But the guy's just getting a good enough run here down on the Ullman Straight for this final time. Race leader Tim Phoeben extending that gap now, still at 0.8 of a second, so only another 10th gain, but he is in the books here for a good one if he can bring it through Sunset for this final time.
That's it. He's going to do it, Timothy Phoeben. Oh, Lithuate's going to throw it. He's going to turn Morris around. Phoeben's going to win, though. We have to call this. Phoeben wins from Sebring for the penultimate round of the championship. Morris in the wall. Lithuate in second. Jesse Butler's going to come through. He said, I'm not waiting for you guys to readdress. I'm going to claim the final podium of the day. And despite that, I tell you what, there'll be a penalty coming 100% for Aiden Lithuate. And that should put Morris on the podium. But it was just a silly move there on the final lap between the two.
Yeah, a little unfortunate. We'll see if we can get a replay as we watch all these cars work their way home to finish off the race. Nathan Happett's after coming in again for his, I think it might have been third stop at that point. Now working on Michael Whiting, so should get the nose of that Fusion Sim car just ahead, and he does across the line. So that will see these guys finish out 11th and 12th. Actually, a change of position there, sorry, with Michael Whiting just getting back ahead, so great effort there. But for the run into second, you've got to throw it on the line, that final corner, as we're going to cut back to a replay here now. And Morris just ahead, Lithuate going very, very wide, trying the alternate line, and brought the nose of that car in very tightly, just caught Matt Morris, and Morris ended up the worst with that, having to respin that car around and get going. As we see the onboard here, you can see just how wide Lithuate is on the run in, and just contacts, unsettles both cars. Lithuate fortunate to be able to rotate that car around a bit quicker.
Oh, goodness. Jesse Butler's not complaining, though, isn't he, in the Porsche? The Redback racing car onto the podium, and a well-earned one for sure. I mean, he kept it consistent, which is one thing the two ahead of him didn't.
Well, yeah, great run from Jesse there. He would have been looking at a fourth position ultimately, and as a result, finds himself now getting that spot. And I think we'll actually see that promote him up into the second spot, as you say. So I would be expecting Matt Morris to jump into the third position as a result of that, lift the weight down potentially to that fifth position. But yeah, exciting finish to what was a great endurance champion.
Wow, brilliant campaign, wasn't it? Really enjoyed that race here. Let's have a look at your final race results for the penultimate round of Season 10. Timothy Phoeben, race winner after starting from 5th. Brilliant race from Phoeben. We didn't know if he had it in him at the end of the day here, but he is celebratory burnouts, of course, for Phoeben at the moment through Sunset Bend. And he's doing a splendid job of that too. Brilliant job, Phoeben. Wins the burnout race and the real race here over 90 minutes. And that'll be a victory he'll thoroughly enjoy. And unfortunately, hopefully not forget as he returns to work tomorrow morning in 12 hours' time. Luthwaite ends up in second. He will... I mean, we're expecting a penalty incoming for Aidan Luthwaite for that last lap move. So that's provisionally for the moment. That should promote Jesse Butler to second and Matt Morris to third on the podium. For Neil Pearson, he finished in 5th. And he is unofficially, but in my head, officially, when you do the math, he is the Enduro Cup champion over the 3 rounds. Very important points for the overall championship too. Although Aidan Luthwaite now, depending on this penalty, initially Luthwaite was going to close the gap to Pearson in the original championship. Luthwaite, with the penalty, could fall behind Neil here in the final standings. And that will mean Pearson would actually extend his championship lead. So the narrative changes as we head to the final round next week. And then Dave Clements ended up in 6th, Bartholomew 7th. Rest of the results will be up on screen. Darryl Carter rounded out the top 10. Lee Vandenberg on a recovery drive after his penalty ended up 11th. Brilliant race from Michael Whiting, up 28 spots from 30th to 12th. Sebastian Murray Westberg, who once led this race, ended up 17th at the end of the day with his very odd strategy. Something different, though, which I like to see. Decent result for him. Only down 3 positions on his starting spot. And have a look at our front row there of Martin Crisp and Braden Nash. 19th and 20th. It almost reminds me of Mercedes Formula One back in 2013 at Spain. I think they had a front row. I don't even know if... I think they finished 6th and 12th or like 10th and 11th or something. I don't even know if they scored points, to be honest with you. And they locked out the front row in qualifying. So... bizarre race, and it certainly reminds me of that. Cameron Veacock ended up 21st, just ahead of David Miller. Then you can see the rest of your finishers and non-finishers up on screen. Now, Daniel, we're hearing news about a post-race penalty for Aidan Luthwaite. We got you, Daniel?
Yes, we do. Apologies for that. So Race Control have actually handed Aidan Luthwaite a 3-second post-race penalty for that contact between himself and Matt Morris. So that should see those 2 positions change again. And ultimately, I believe that will promote Matt Morris then up into the third position.
Well, it shouldn't. 3 seconds, because Morris... No, so that's a bit weird. We'll have to check back on that, because a 3-second penalty would mean Luthwaite drops to third ahead of Morris. So I don't know if Race Control, I don't know if that's official. We'll get that double checked. I'm not saying you're wrong, Daniel, but if you look at the final results, Luthwaite was 10.8 seconds behind Phoeben for the win. Morris 14.3. If you take away 3, that's 13.806. So he's going to finish third.
Yeah, actually, who can't math? I can't math. So that will be an interesting way to see that unfold. Looks like, though, we do have Matt Morris in and the guy, so we'll keep an eye out for it. But, yeah, very interesting conclusion to this.
Yeah, it certainly was. But let's speak to your race winner, Timothy Phoeben here, straight out of the cockpit. Tim, an amazing victory for you. We knew you had it in you. We knew you had the pace, but it was an awfully tense finish for you in that BMW.
Yeah, it was a really tough race, and it's finally good to get the monkey off the back, so to speak. Yeah, I had a good battle with Matt Morris through that middle sort of segment, and yeah, just wasn't sure how all the pit stops had played out given the safety car, and yeah, just sort of tried to follow on and just keep lap speed up, and yeah, it worked out in the end.
At what point during the race did you realize that you had a chance to win this? Because like you said, even back in the commentary booth, we were trying to figure out who was going to pit when, which pit stops were made on the third lap, which weren't. Because you were one of the drivers who pitted, I think, I might be wrong with it. Did you pit on lap 2, or is that just the safety car I'm thinking of?
No, I took my first stop
it
under
lap
the
8?
second safety car. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
sure what lap that was. And yeah, it took in about 20 litres of fuel. But yeah, it wasn't until like I'd come out behind Nathan Hupperts, and I wasn't sure when he pitted either. And yeah, it wasn't really till they said that he'd taken his fuel early and didn't have enough to get home. And that's sort of when I thought I had a chance. But yeah, Matt had been, quick and threatening sort of in that middle part. So yeah, but it was nice once him and Aiden sort of got in a bit of a battle in that, let the pressure off a little bit.
For the Mach 1 Esports team, though, you guys have been driving ever so well the past few weeks. Dave Clements last week comes to mind as well. The team's in prime form at the moment.
Yeah, everyone seems to have, stepped it up this season. Yeah, and just I suppose it's about not making mistakes, and we can sort of run up the front. And yeah, Dave and Jesse last week did really well on strategy, and unfortunately me and Lee made some silly mistakes. But yeah, overall we're getting good results. So yeah, it's been great.
And finally, who gets it done for you in that Mach 1 Esports BMW? Surely a lot of people to thank here from the final endurance round of the season.
Yeah, so just like to thank our sponsors, RMS, Bow Repairs Australia, LeBlanc Group, and Night Rider Designs for the paint schemes. But yeah, just really thanks to the team. Second season on board with them, and yeah, really sort of, I suppose, come a long way with my racing. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, lovely. We'll leave you to it, Tim. Hopefully see you next week at the final round. Will you be there, of course?
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed he's at Road Atlanta. We'll leave him to it. Timothy Phoeben with some awesome burnouts, by the way, at the end of the race, celebrating yet another race victory for himself. Daniel Vliet, though, you are alongside Jesse Butler. Where did Jesse Butler come from? A podium position for him.
Yeah, that's it, mate. Congratulations, Jesse. Found yourself what might have potentially been a fourth position, but some unfortunate issues ahead of you brought you up into the second spot, mate. So well done on that. How was the racing out there for you?
To be quite honest with you, it was a difficult night. I spun around at Sunset Bend all by myself, and that dropped me a fair way back, and then we got caught up in some other incidents, and the whole front end was all caved in and whatnot. So luckily we've got fast repairs, and I honestly have got no idea how I ended up in fourth, let alone get second.
Oh, mate, it's a fantastic way to finish off the Enduro Cup. I think we caught one of your major issues going through turn one there, where a little bit of avoidance with a couple of guys ending up in a pretty big wreck. So well done to yourself for getting through that. But overall, the pace of the Redback racing car, very, very strong tonight. Lap times very consistent. How was everything as far as race trim goes for you, excluding those couple of minor issues?
Yeah, it was quite surprising. It was with coming to the new team with Mach 1, it was really good to be able to go out there with the guys and do a whole heap of practice on your race runs and just nailing those long stints. And that was my main goal, just trying to be consistent and reasonably quick, and obviously it paid off for me.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, we know everyone loves the BMW. How are you finding the Porsche out there? One of the few times we've seen a Porsche up towards the pointy end. Let's get your understanding of how have you found the car throughout the course of the season?
I've absolutely loved it. I actually tried earlier in the week to a bit of practice in the BMW, and I don't think I could even stay on the track. So, no, I'm really enjoying the balance of the Porsche. Just out of the corners and you turn in and stuff like that. It's really good. Yeah, I just think it's just a car that suits my kind of driving style, so stick with it.
Definitely, mate. We'll let you go. Enjoy the second position tonight. Before we let you go, though, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out and a thanks to for helping along the way?
Yeah, sure. I'd like to thank Mach 1 for introducing me to the new team. I'd also like to thank RMS, Race Management Service. They do a great job, as always. LeBlanc Group, Night Rider Designs, and Sam Blacklock Media. I'd just like to thank everyone and yourselves for once again doing that. I think this is my second time in here and limited to the man of the races, so hopefully I'll make it more of a consistent thing.
Yeah, definitely. Well, mate, we've certainly enjoyed seeing what you've been capable of in the car tonight, and look forward to seeing you back out again next week for Road Atlanta.
Yeah, thanks, boys.
So finally, we will grab Matt Morris. Matt, we got you.
Hello.
How you doing, mate? It's a very, I'm not sure how to approach you post-race here. It was a very dramatic finish for you. You should have finished second. The penalty sort of helps you, but not really, because it gives you third, but you should have finished second, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not very happy about it because, I don't know. We're not racing spaceships, so you've got to be sort of close if you want to have a go. But yeah, no, it was a good race with Tim up the front. I was really enjoying that. So, yeah, it is what it is.
We were looking at you mid-race and following you, and I think we had an onboard lap with you, and at one point you gained, this was on Pat Gallo, about 2 seconds in one lap on the lead. And we were saying, you know what, if you didn't put your money on Matt Morris to win this race, you'd be an idiot. At the end of the day, it seemed like once you caught Tim there at the end of the race, we thought you were going to win, and then I think with 2 laps to go, your pace just dropped off. I'm not sure what happened to you in the Ferrari.
The tyres, like I really burned the tyres up coming through that midfield. Yeah, I was working them really, really hard, and then once I sort of, towards the end, I got up behind Tim, and I knew he had the pace, and I don't think I sort of, if I was going to throw a move up the inside or something, it was going to be a dive bomb, and I didn't want to wreck either of our races. So, and then once I got Lithuate on my tail after a bit of a battle, and I had to defend from him because it's just the way it goes.
But hey, look at the bright side. Double points for you. I know you're not too concerned about the championship because you're not really in contention for it, but double points with the Endurance Cup. And it's a good way to go into Road Atlanta for the final round. It's a bit of positivity for you if you look at it that way.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty happy with where I've gone and stuff with the championship. But just that last round, a silly mistake. Probably could have won that one too. I don't like making the silly mistakes. Pretty harsh on myself for them. So this race, I just wanted a nice clean race, but qualifying wasn't very good. So right from the start, it was a lot of work to do.
Finally, we'll let you go here, but a lot of people to thank, of course, in that VMMR car. Who gets it done for you?
Well, just like to thank the Velocity Motorsport magazine for the continual support. Trackstar, the guys in my team as well for putting up with me and stuff. It makes it worthwhile. And yeah, you guys for the broadcast. Like each week, you guys are getting better and better. So big shout out to you guys and AMF guys as well for putting the show on. That's about it.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Matt. We'll leave you to it, mate. Hopefully see you at well, you're in prime form anyway, if you think about it. Hopefully probably see you again, I'd say, in a week's time at Road Atlanta.
Yeah, I'll be there. Hopefully I can get a win. No, I want one win for the season.
You'll get there, mate.
Right.
We'll leave you to it. But
All right.
Daniel, we head to Road Atlanta next week, and it is like I said, a circuit that I look forward to in sim racing, not only as a driver, but as a broadcaster, and it's one that can produce a lot of action. That blind crest into the first sector can also provide a lot of chaos.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're off to a fantastic race to finish off what has been a great season, a little shorter than what we're used to, but nonetheless still absolutely fantastic championship all around. And as you say, yeah, that run up into turn 3, really blind, super fast. So for all these guys trying to find a good braking marker through upcoming weeks of practice, really going to be key to getting the most through the start of that lap. And then you have that fantastic run down through the back straight into that really tight chicane for turns 10 and 10A before you crest and drop back down to start the lap again. So it's a circuit that offers a lot of challenging corners for these guys to get through, and for the guys that are able to master it, we're going to be in for some cracking racing to close out this season.
Most certainly, and that race will take place on the 1st of March. That's in a week's time. You can catch all the action of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Series for round number 9. 45 minutes around Road Atlanta, and it'll all be on Apex Racing TV, streaming live on the iRacing Esports Network. Thanks, of course, to all the viewers who joined us for the broadcast today. Thanks for contributing as well in terms of live chat. Hope you enjoyed all the action from myself, Jonathan Simon, Daniel Eade alongside me, Scott Newton behind the scenes in production, and the entire Apex Racing TV crew. This has been an Apex Racing TV presentation broadcasted on our associated platforms. Of course, visit apexracingtv.com for more information on sim racing broadcasting. And let's not forget to thank our sponsors, RMS, Abruzzi Racewear, and Simfinity. Check all them out at their associated websites. For now, though, our winner today, Tim Phoeben. We'll see you next week from Road Atlanta. Who will win the Season 10 championship? That's the question we'll answer.